And we'll just settle into something that feels easy. It feels open for full respiration. Maybe let the eyes close here. The High Steward was in the dining hall, carefully laying out the silver around the table for each setting. Every few moments, there was this thunderous explosion from outside that would rattle not just his ears, but his chest. Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here just to feel how respiration is working in the body this evening. And then when it feels appropriate for you, let's extend our right arm straight out in front of us, palm away from us, fingers up, and just take the left hand across the four fingers and retract those so that we get just a little awareness up the forearm musculature here. Generally, the anterior forearm musculature is a little bit more restrictive than our wrist capacity here, but you may feel this more in your wrist. If that's true, you can push back into the left hand with the right fingers a little bit more. And then let's relax. And we'll just switch sides. Left arm extends out in front of us, right hand, four fingers across, and we'll retract those. Again, just trying to activate this forearm musculature. And if the wrist is more restrictive than the forearm musculature, just try pushing those four fingers into the right hand. And when you feel balance left to right, let's release those, maybe a little movement through the shoulders. And eventually we're going to transition to hands and knees tabletop. And as we come into hands and knees tabletop, let's lay the fingers out nice and wide and get your engagement into your hands. And then let's just add a little lateral sway across the shoulders. Trying here to just feel the weight distribution as it moves across the finger mounts. So we're rooted enough in our hands that as our weight shifts, we really can feel where that's moving in the hands. And then we'll come back to neutral. And let's flip our left hand over so that the left fingertips can point towards the left knee. And then give yourself just a little bit of balanced weight distribution between the left and right hand. Splay the fingers on the left hand out just like you would if it was facing down. And then we'll Release that, left hand plants. Let's do the same thing to the right side. Right hand flips over and we splay those fingers out. We really try to balance the weight distribution between the left and right hand here. As much activity across the palm or the hand as you can. And then we'll flip that back over and just settle yourself back into a little child's pose. Let the body just land here. And so even though these thunderous explosions are rattling the core of his being, the high stewardess is not even looking up as these things happen. He's just meticulously laying out the silverware at each setting around the dining table. Give yourself just 15 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves back into tabletop. And we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and roll our way back into our first down dog of practice here. Think again about how the hands are interplaying with the mat and where the weight is in the hands. Try to keep the finger mounds and fingertips nice and active. And then let's walk our way to the front of the mat. We'll inhale into half lift. So you get into this half lift, extend the entirety of the spine and think about the gaze being straight down. And then let your hands slide up to your thighs or your knees, just below the kneecaps. And then keep the hands on the legs as you exhale and release back down. So the hands slide with you here. Let's stay connected. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Getting into this top space. Finding your mountain. And then sweeping the arms up and overhead. And exhaling through forward fold. And letting your hands come onto your legs, and then inhaling and letting the hands slide up the legs into your half lift. Exhale back into fold. And we'll slide the left foot straight back into lunge. As the left toe mound lands, sweep yourself up into crescent. Think about settling into the middle of your crescent, maintaining that neutrality with the torso. Then float your hands down to the mat. We'll slide the left foot back into fold and inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Then second side, right foot slides straight back. Right toe mound lands. As it does, we'll sweep to crescent. Stay with that neutral body awareness. Float the hands down to the mat and we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. Walk your way into down dog. Feel the strength radiating from the fingertips through the shoulder socket. You're really rooted in there. And then let's shift forward to plank. And we'll lower ourselves down to our belly. So we come to our belly, flip the tops of the feet, keep the hands right where they are. Squeeze the quads so the kneecaps lift. And keep the forehead connected to the mat, but lighten the pressure that it's making so that you're not releasing the forehead into the mat, but you're maintaining connection forehead to mat. And then ensure that you are getting full respiration cycles, full inhale, full exhale. And we'll relax, slide the hands underneath the forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just breathe here. As the head steward is going to pick up the soup spoons, he hears a crash at the castle entryway. And he thinks to himself, well, that must be the gates falling. And then he picks up the spoons and he goes back to the table and works his way around it in the dining hall, laying them out with perfect precision at each setting. When it feels appropriate for you, slide your hands underneath your shoulders, bring some strength into those fingertips, and let's press ourselves up into tabletop. From tabletop, send your right leg straight back and behind you and point those right toes and really think about flexing the quad and maintaining this one line from the crown of your head out through the tips of the toes. And then see if you can extend your left arm straight forward without allowing any belly drop. Here is the key. Very easy to soften into the belly. Maintain that core engagement as you extend. And let's turn our thumb so it's facing the ceiling or sky. And then we'll relax the hand, relax the knee, curl your toes, lift your seat, and find down dog. Get the strength in your finger mounds and fingertips, not in the heels of your hands. We should be light in the heels of the hands. And then let's come back down to hands and knees, tabletop. I'll do the same thing the second side. So left leg's gonna extend straight back. Toes point, we get the core engaged, we keep the spine long, we extend from the crown of the head, and then see what it feels like to take your right arm and reach it forward. And we'll turn the thumb up towards the ceiling or sky. Maintain that core engagement so we're no drop at the belly. And then when you feel balance left to right, right hand down, left knee down, curl your toes, lift your seat, and find down dog. Let's send our right leg straight back and behind us. And then we'll step the right foot in between our hands. And bring your right hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of your right foot, and ground your left heel. Looking to stack the shoulders here, not necessarily looking to reach the arm, right? But we want to feel a wrist, elbow, shoulder stack for a little side angle. And then let your left hand come back down to the mat. Spin your left heel up and reach your right arm straight forward. Right hand comes down to the mat, right foot steps back into down dog. Left foot extends straight back and behind us. And we'll step the left foot forward into lunge. Bring the left hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of the left foot, right heel grounds. Same thing on the stack. We want a wrist, elbow, shoulder on the lower arm or the grounded arm, and then that right arm to find a shoulder stack. No matter if we're extending or not, just want to feel those shoulders stack up. When you feel balance left to right, right hand comes down to the mat, right heel spins up, left arm reaches straight forward. Left hand comes down to the mat, left foot steps back into down dog. Get your depth here. And then eventually we'll walk to the front of the mat. Inhaling into half lift. Long, flat, neutral back. Exhale back into fold. We'll drift our awareness to our sacrum and we'll roll or sweep our way into mountain. And as we re-engage mountain, bring your hands together, heart center. And splay the fingers out nice and, or splay the toes out nice and wide. You can splay the fingers out too. But think about how we're developing this open foundation of stability here. And then let's slide our hands behind us. If behind you doesn't feel appropriate for the shoulders, go to the shorts, just edge the shorts or pants. And just take a couple of rounds of breath, just allowing for a little anterior shoulder girdle awareness, expansion. And then we'll relax and bring our hands together at heart center once again. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left heel and roll open to warrior two. Really thinking about how we just expand laterally here. And then let's drop it to side angle once again. So right hand's gonna come down to the medial edge, right edge of the foot, big toe edge of the foot. And just a nice deep full breath here. Before we draw ourselves back up into two. Left heel spins up, we'll find crescent. Drop the hands to heart center and return to the front of the mat. Reestablish this structural integrity of mountain here. And then when it feels appropriate, let's slide our right foot straight back. We'll ground the right heel, roll to two. And once again, as we get into this warrior two, just think about lateral expansion. When your body feels ready, we're going to drop the left hand down to the medial edge, big toe edge of that left foot. Stack the shoulders. And then when you feel balance left to right, we'll draw ourselves back to two. settle back into this shape. Right heel spins up crescent. Drop the hands and return to the front of the mat. Big, full, deep inhale breath. And full, deep exhale breath. The end of the exhale, let's inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale a quarter of the way. And then inhale back into half lift. And then exhale all the way into your fold. Release that lumbar there. Plant your hands and walk to down dog. Shift to plank. And lower yourself down to your belly. Lift the tops of the feet. Squeeze the elbows in here. This time let's take our forehead maybe a millimeter off the mat. Quads are flexed so the kneecaps are lifted. And we're remembering to fully respirate. Probably the hardest challenge in these little cobra-esque shapes is to remind ourselves that we can fully breathe, even with the amount of core engagement required to keep the head in place, keep the lumbar protected. And let's relax. We'll slide our hands underneath our forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just be at ease here. Eventually, the head steward heard footsteps running down the hallway, kicking in the doors and getting closer and closer to the dining hall. But he never looked up. He continued to set the table. And when the door to the dining hall was kicked in, he was folding napkins into the shape of swans. The door crashed to the floor with tremendous amount of force and noise. The high steward didn't even look up. He continued to fold the swan he was working on. When it feels appropriate, let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders, and we're gonna flex our quads once again. And then come up onto your toe mounds if that's accessible for your toes. And just feel that amount of energy. Now take your forehead a millimeter off the mat and feel the difference in the amount of energy required. And then relax your forehead back down to the mat and point your toes, maybe hovering an inch or two off the ground, towards the space behind you. And remember to fully breathe here. And relax. Press yourself up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and roll our way back into down dog. And we'll walk to the front of the mat. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll sweep or roll our way into mountain. Bring the hands together at heart center. Let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Ground our left heel and roll to 2. And then take your right forearm to your right thigh and find this modified version of side angle. Now take your left hand and extend it straight out towards the space in front of you. Palm down, so left palm down. And then see if it's within the practice to extend the right arm so the palms face towards one another, stacking those shoulders nicely. And then we'll draw ourselves back up into 2. And really blossom out into this space. Slide back into your right hamstring. And let's just see if we have a triangle available to us at this point in practice. If you don't, just bend the front knee. If it's there, you find a nice open triangle, but only if it's accessible. And then we'll bend the front knee and draw ourselves back into 2. Nice work. Sink into that space, really think about the width here. Left heel spins up, we're into crescent. Drop the hands, step to the front of the mat. Reorganize in mountain. Give that glute squeeze, give that lift. When it feels appropriate for you. Second foot, right foot slides straight back. Right heel grounds, we roll to 2. Get your width here. And then let's bend the left forearm onto the left thigh. Right arm reaches towards the space in front of us, palm down. Think about setting up the modified side angle first. And then if it's accessible within the practice, reach the left arm and get that big, nice shoulder stack as you reach those arms towards the front of the room. And then we'll draw ourselves back up into 2. And we make sure we land and blossom here. When it feels appropriate, spin the right heel up, we'll find crescent. And then we'll drop the hands and step to the front of the mat. And reorient around this mountain. Inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale, quarter fold, so release halfway. And then inhale back into half lift. One more time to that quarter fold. 3/4 fold. It's definitely one of those. Inhale the half lift. And then exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk to down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and sink into child's pose. Pay attention to your hip girdle and your shoulder girdle as you settle into this second version of child's pose. Compare it to the first time you were here. See if you can feel more space, not only to move the arms or the hips, but to breathe. And then try to take every bit of available space in your lungs as you pull your respiration in. And as you release and empty the lungs, try to release every bit of breath out of the body. So the door to the dining hall was kicked in by this leader of this revolutionary force. And he sees the high steward at the table folding napkins. And he shouts out, "Old man, Why are you not on your knees, begging for your life? The High Steward responds, but he doesn't look up from the napkins. He says, without changing his gaze at all, says, because dinner is to be served at 8 p.m. and the dining hall is not prepared yet. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Take your right foot and extend it straight back and behind you. And then we'll step the right foot forward into lunge. As the right foot lands, slide back into your right hamstring. And just try to activate that posterior chain here. And then rebend the right knee, get the tibia and fibia vertical, and sweep your arms towards the front of your room. Try to have a space between your thigh and your torso. Float the hands down to the mat and slide back into your right hamstring. Just trying to activate the posterior chain on that right leg. Rebend the right knee and extend the arms out towards the space in front of you. Splay the toes out on the right foot. Drop the hands to the mat. Slide back into your right hamstring one last time. Bend the front knee and sweep the arms towards the front of the room one last time. Good, full, long reach here. Float the hands down to the mat, step the right foot back in a down dog. Nice work. Feel any asymmetry in your legs. And then let's extend our left foot straight back and behind us. And we'll step the left foot forward into lunge. And as you land, slide back into your left hamstring. Enough to activate that posterior chain. Does not need to be more than that. And then we'll bend the left knee. Sweep the arms out in front of us. Good long reach here. Really think about the depth of your reach. Put the hands down on the mat. Slide back into that left hamstring. Rebend the front knee, sweep the arms out in front of you. Get that length. Drive into that back leg for strength. Put the hands down on the mat, slide back into the left hamstring. Last time. Rebend the front knee, sweep the arms for the last time. Good reach, good depth. Float the hands to the mat, slip the left foot back into down dog. Nice work. Let's come back down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink your way back into child's pose. And now really pay attention to the space around your hips. Can you settle in, physically settle into a little more room here? And you use that room to find more capacity to respirate. So revolutionary. Kind of thrown off by this response. But he pulls himself together and says, "Old man, the royal family has fled the kingdom. We have breached the walls of your castle, the gate of your castle, the dining hall of your castle. We've burned your city to the ground. Dinner is not going to be served. In 5 minutes, I'm going to cut your head off. And the High Steward says, well, that may be true 5 minutes from now, but right now, I'm setting the table for dinner. And as he says that, he looks up at the revolutionary and he sees that he's in this jacket that's covered in mud and filth. And it's like slopping off onto the dining room floor. And his gaze just gets this steely cold as he watches the jacket slopping mud onto his dining hall floor. Last 10 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Try to find that same capacity to respirate here in down dog. And then let's walk our way to the front of the mat. And as you get to the front of the mat, activate the arches on both feet. And then splay the toes out on both feet. And notice the weight distribution across the toe mounds and heels. We want it balanced between the heel and the toe mound, but we also want it balanced between the pinky toe edge and the big toe edge, medial and lateral edge. And then keep that awareness on the foot weight distribution as you roll yourself up towards mountain and eventually into mountain. And when we establish this vertical stack of our spinal column, still feel how the arches are active in the feet. Still feel how you have this really balanced distribution of weight through the feet. And then give yourself just the slightest amount without turning your feet of torsion energy so that we get just a little bit of like musculature rotation towards the lateral edge of your body. And then squeeze the glutes to help seal that up. And so we get that little bit of torsion and then we squeeze the glutes and just feel how that brings us into this really structurally sound lower body. And when you have a structurally sound lower body, it's hard for the upper body not to follow, right? You can almost feel how the core starts to squeeze in. But give yourself that glute squeeze, then add a little core squeeze. And then turn your palms towards the front of your room. Just breathe here. Make sure the toes aren't squishing in, that we're staying splayed out, we're staying active. Even if that plantar fascial tissue is kind of speaking to you like, well, this is a lot of work, let it work for just a moment here. We're only going to be here for another 40 seconds. And we're just teaching our body to stand in this full structural integrity. Last 15 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, sweep the arms up overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. One more time to half lift. And one more time to forward fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop. Let's extend our legs straight out in front of us. And as the legs extend out in front of you, craft that staff capacity. And let's exhale into forward fold. Remember, the knees can bend here. Try to feel your body's ability to fully respirate. Be a little hard on the inhale here. See if you can slowly draw a full inhale breath in. Give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. See if every time you exhale, you can find a little bit more room, a little bit more expansiveness in the body. When it feels appropriate, let's bring ourselves back to a nice vertical staff and then lower ourselves onto our spine. And as you come onto your spine for the first time this practice, really note the feedback your body's giving you here. Legs can be extended, knees can be bent, but note the feedback that your body's offering, where the posterior chain is speaking to you, where any other restrictive components are speaking to you. Give ourselves just 15 more seconds just to feel into the feedback here. And then when it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees into a bent position if they're not already there. And just ensure that your heels are kind of lined up with the middle of your glutes. And let's start a little dynamic sway of the knees here, a little bridge into twist. So your movement here does not need to be full, just whatever feels appropriate. But if full edge-to-edge rotation is accessible to you, certainly be willing to explore that. Okay, one more time in each direction. Eventually, we're going to let the knees fall over to the left and just Find a little static hold, a little static twist. Try to explore a little depth of your rotation. At this point, the high steward stands up and he walks over to this revolutionary who's kicked in this door, who's sieged this castle, who's burned this town. And he extends his arm with his palm out and he says, "Sir, if you're going to be the head of this household, you're going to need to remove your jacket when you enter the dining hall. And please, whatever you do not bring your mud in here." And the revolutionary is kind of, he's dumbfounded now. He's expecting this person across from him to be screaming or begging for their life, and they're asking for his jacket, and he just almost instinctively takes the jacket off. And then the head steward looks at the men behind this revolutionary and he extends his arm. He says, "Sirs, there is no outerwear to be worn in the dining hall." And they all hand him their jackets, and he walks and he puts their jackets in the coat closet. And he comes back into the dining hall and he says, "Sit down and I'll get the soup." When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the second side. They all sit down around this grand hall, this table. And the high steward watches them all sit down. And then he's just about to walk into the kitchen to go to bring the soup. And he does this like cough, like, "Gentlemen, please ensure that your elbows are not ever placed upon my table." And then he disappears into the kitchen. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Just ask yourself here if there's anything that you might want, that you might need, that you could benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, let's offer that to our body now. And if you have everything you want, if you have everything you need, if you're ready to find some stillness, then let's find some stillness for our body. The revolutionary went on to become king of this kingdom. And it turned out to be a great thing. He was a great leader and a great king. He brought a lot of prosperity and kindness to the kingdom. When he told the story, years and years and years and years and years on, about the day he took over, about the day he ousted the old king, ransacked the castle, he never spoke about the battles. Let's bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. To our wrists and our ankles. To our elbows and our knees. Shoulders, hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the whole body moves, and we can utilize that movement to transition our way into a seat. In this seated space, let our spine get tall, breath get fluid, eyes closed. He never spoke one word about the battles. Instead, he told the story of how he was defeated by a man armed only with a napkin. With our next inhale, let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that while the world may determine where you stand, you and only you can determine how you stand and see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste.